How would you describe, Jim, this Build Back Better or Great Reset agenda anyway?
Build Back Better is a slogan. Like the $1 trillion infrastructure bill, which there does appear to be bipartisan consensus, so that's going to get through. Although Nancy Pelosi is holding it hostage for the $3.5 trillion welfare bill. So it's passed the Senate. The infrastructure passed the Senate. They throw it over the House. She's like, I won't schedule a House vote on that until the House and the Senate approved the $3.5 trillion. Mm-hmm. Well, they're having problems with that because Kirsten Sinema, Joe Manchin, and some others. They say they're the two front people on the Democrat side, but there are others who are concerned about it. That's becoming more unpopular by this. Let's see what happens. But even if the $1 trillion goes through, it's only about $270 billion of what you and I would call infrastructure. So you got bridges, tunnels, roads, airports, stoplights. That's infrastructure. Everybody agrees on that. Everybody wants that, and it can be very productive spending. But 3/4 of it is, human infrastructure. Like, let's pay for daycare so construction workers to go to work. That's infrastructure. Well, you can debate daycare, but that's not what most people think of as infrastructure. And it's actually real infrastructure is a good use of funds, but the payoff is 10 years.
Yeah.
You make an airport better. Okay, that's a good thing. You got to fly places or highways or whatever, but the payoff is 10 years. Now, that doesn't mean you shouldn't do it, but don't expect that to stimulate anything in the next 10 months. And as far as the 3.5 trillion, that's just, that's the culmination. That's FDR's New Deal, LBJ's Great Society, and Nancy Pelosi's, finishing touches. We're going to permanently have cradle to grave support. Zuckerberg has said this. He gave a speech at Harvard a couple of years ago on guaranteed basic income. He said, basically, with automation, we're not going to have work for people to do, so we ought to just give them some money so they don't riot. I mean, I guess riot in the streets. Which I think is horrible. I think it's just a really despicable approach to human talent, but that don't underestimate the extent to which that is mainstream thinking right now. So you got to push back against that, and that's what the 2022 elections might be set up to do that. So Build Back Better is a slogan. There are things government can spend money on that do add to productivity. They are, but that's not what we're doing.
Jim, can you comment on China increasing their gold reserves, opening its gold window in Shanghai? Is it similar to the one Nixon closed in 71?
Yeah, well, of course, China is increasing their gold reserves. They've approximately tripled them in the last 12 years. So between 2009 and 2021, they've gone from 600 metric tons to just under 2,000 metric tons. That they admit. Now, China is completely non-transparent about this, but they'll go 3 years, 4 years, no increase, just the same print every month, and then boom, here's 500 tons. Well, I know a lot about the gold market. You can't buy 500 tons. I mean, call Goldman Sachs, call HSBC. They're the I'll bite my tongue, but you can't fill an order like that. You can't fill an order for 50 tons. So what it means is that they've been buying it all along. And then they just feel like disclosing it. They have a sovereign wealth fund called the State Administration for Foreign Exchange, which was run by an ex-PIMCO guy, completely non-transparent. That's where they keep the gold off the books. And then every now and then, meaning every several years, they'll flip it over to the People's Bank of China and publicize it as an increase in 200 tons or whatever. But they're buying it all along. So we don't actually know. But assuming that they've continued to do that, which I'm certain they have, they have at least several hundred tons, perhaps 500 to 1,000 tons off the book. So let's put them up at the 3,000 plus level. Russia is much more transparent. They publish every month, so we know exactly what they're doing. Elvira Nabiulina is my favorite central banker. She's the only one who seems to know what the job requires. The one that shocked me, I was actually writing an article on Russia and gold yesterday, and just kind of freshened up the research. And the one that I almost fell off my chair was Japan added 80 tons. I was like, what? They haven't bought. No, seriously, they haven't bought gold in decades. Like, go back to the timeline is like zero. For kind of going to the China thing, so you can't fill 80 tons. Like, what's up with this? So I looked at it, and what it said, kind of like China, it was an internal accounting entry between account people within the Ministry of Finance. Okay. But so they didn't go out and buy the market. But it means that they have hidden gold. It means that they've got gold. They're not. But then it's okay. Second derivative. Why now? you've had the hidden gold, okay. Separate account in the Ministry of Finance, non-transparent, okay. You made the accounting entries, you put it on in your reserve position, and World Gold Council reports it, IMF reports it. Why now? Well, okay. Well, what it tells me is that people are losing confidence in the United States. This goes right to Afghanistan, and just that. Okay, I'll digress a little more and come back. So Eric Prince is doing an interview with Tucker Carlson a couple of days ago, and Eric Prince is, former Navy SEAL, also has his own army, created his own army. That's a statement. Very few people know more about Afghanistan than he does. So I'm paying attention because I'm following the Afghanistan story. And in the middle of it, he says, and by the way, this is the beginning of the end of the dollar's role as reserve currency because people have now lost confidence in the United States. We've humiliated ourselves. We surrendered. We retreated, and it was and took casualties in a retreat, which even Lee didn't do at Gettysburg. And by the way, there are only a handful of people, like maybe 5 people in the world, who can pivot from geopolitics to international monetary economics without taking a beat. They get good people on both sides, David Rosenberg, Lacey Hunt on economics, and a lot of good people on the geopolitical side. But the number of people who can go from one to the other just like that is a really short list. Eric Prince is one of them. And because I get into this debate all the time, because people go, the gold bugs go, well, there's nothing backing the dollar. There's nothing backing up the dollar. And then the anti-Bitcoin people, there's nothing backing up Bitcoin. Well, I can say the same thing about gold. There's nothing backing up gold. I mean, it's physical, it's tangible. You can touch it. Atomic number 79. But there's nothing else behind the gold. And what I say is they're all backed by the same thing: dollars, euros, gold, Bitcoin, anything else you want to mention. They're all backed by the same thing, which is confidence. If I tender you some money for goods or services, and you're confident that it's money, and furthermore, you're confident that you can turn around and tender it to somebody else for your own goods and services, then it's money. It doesn't matter what it is. But here's the caveat: confidence is fragile. It's easily lost. And it's impossible to regain. And the point that Eric Prince was making is, if you have confidence in the dollar, what's behind that? Again, let's do the second derivative. What's behind it? Well, 10 aircraft carrier, battle groups might be a good start. And if we're now eroding that, if we're now destroying that, which we are, you can see confidence in the dollar wane very quickly. And then I see our friends in Japan print, 80 tons of gold out of thin air. Well, it wasn't thin air, it was the accounting entry. But why are they doing that? Well, it's because they're talking to Taiwan about mutual defense. If you're China and you want to invade Taiwan, why stop there? Why not kick on to Japan if the U.S. doesn't have your back? So that's where this whole Afghanistan thing has implications that very few people can really comprehend.
The Chinese doing this, allowing its currency to float against gold, to give is it to give confidence to other countries that want to sell oil and other commodities in the Chinese currency?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, China is not anywhere close to having enough gold for gold-backed currency. They are acquiring gold, granted, but their gold as a percentage of their total reserves is 2%. And if you want a good trivia question, you're going to borrow something like that, ask someone to tell you what percentage of the U.S. reserve position is in gold. The answer is 74%. For all the trash talk coming out of the Fed, now gold's not money. 74% of U.S. reserves are in gold, and similarly high percentages for Germany and France. And Russia's getting there. Russia's up to 20%, but China's like 2%, maybe a little bit higher, because they got a $4 trillion reserve position and not that much gold. So, and the other problem with the digital yuan or the gold-backed yuan, you hear about this all the time. Great Reset conversation. They have no rule of law. Why would you want a dime's worth of yuan if there's no rule of law, if it's what they say it is, if there's no recourse, there's no courts, there's no checks and balances, et cetera, there's no enforceability, nothing. And you'll never have a bond market. You never have there's a small one, but you'll never get a robust Chinese government bond market with, across the yield curve and primary dealers and repos and when issued trading and the settlement and clearance and bankruptcies and all those things we've spent 100 years building up in the United States, or get back to Hamilton, 230 plus years. You can't pull that out of thin air. It would take 10 years at a minimum if they were willing to throw off the Communist Party, which they're not. So they're not even close to that. The digital yuan is all about totalitarian control within China. They got cameras everywhere, biometrics everywhere, facial recognition software everywhere, social credit scores. Mark Zuckerberg would be right at home there. But the point is, if there's no more cash, By the way, I'm giving a speech in Hillsdale College. I told my business manager, I got the invitation from Hillsdale College. I was very honored. And I said, this is the new Harvard. And she was a little skeptical about it. I said, well, it really is. It's where all the big brains are going. It's kind of like an Atlas Shrugged kind of thing. But the other keynote invitee is J.D. Vance. So I'm going to get on a day early to look forward to meeting him. But my topic is the cashless society. So I've been spending a lot of time on this. But the minute you go cashless, then everything's digital by definition, which means you can track. They're already tracking your whereabouts with your iPhone or your Samsung, whatever. But every purchase, everything you do online, retail, in the store, physical premise, whatever, it's a surveillance technique and a social a gauge of socially, are you doing things that are contrary to the interests of the Communist Party? So now I don't see China as a global reserve currency. They don't have enough gold to be backed by gold. Are they trying to get the Iranians and Saudis to take some yuan for oil? Yeah, and there's a little bit of that. But what are you going to do with the yuan? China doesn't. Are they destroying value? Of course they are. But who owns the value? It's Chinese oligarchs and U.S. investors, U.S. index investors, right? So what do they care? What does the Communist Party of China care if they destroy an oligarch or hurt U.S. investors? They probably favor that, right? They're not handmaidens of the markets the way they are in the U.S. So why would you own Chinese stocks?
Jim, is your ICE 9 prediction still in play, or are we past that?
No, it's still in play. And just I'll be really brief. ICE 9 is I nicked it from Kurt Vonnegut, who used it in his novel Cat's Cradle, which I highly recommend. Hilarious. It's a black comedy in the early 60s, at a time when we were all worried about the world being blown up by nuclear weapons. But the idea was that a physicist invented ICE 9, which is an isotope of water, and it's frozen at what we call room temperature. But if a molecule of ICE 9 comes in contact with a molecule of water, the water turns to ICE 9. So if you poured a vial into a stream, the stream would freeze, the sound would freeze, the ocean would freeze, the world would freeze, and life on Earth would come to an end. So that's what ICE 9 is. But I took that idea and applied it to financial markets and said, you can't shut down one market because, FDR had a bank holiday in 1933, but people don't remember that. He shut every bank in America by executive order. Every bank in America by executive order shut, and didn't say when he was going to reopen them. They were reopened about a week later, but he didn't say that at the time. But the point is, if you freeze money market funds, you say, okay, we've got to run on money market funds. Nobody can redeem money market funds until further notice. And you can do that. Then they're going to go to the banks. They're going to give me my money out of the bank. Well, then they're going to have to freeze withdrawals from deposits. Then they're going to go to stocks and sell stocks because people want the cash, and they're going to have to shut the stock market. So the point is, you can't freeze one section of the markets without freezing all of them, because investors will just pivot from one to the other to the next, the same way the ICE 9 molecule, until you have to shut down everything. And I talked about this in chapter 1 of my book, The Road to Ruin, 2016, how the biggest cog in the wheel, if you will, is BlackRock. And BlackRock's not a bank, and it barely avoided being regulated as a systemically important financial institution coming out of Dodd-Frank. But don't think that the lobbying associated with that wasn't, taken to an unheard of level. Larry Fink gets touted as Secretary of the Treasury, but rest assured that if you get into the kind of scenario we just described, that there'll be a phone call to BlackRock and say, you've got to freeze everybody. You can't sell. You can't sell.
Before we continue, help us clicking that YouTube like button and subscribe now to our channel. This shows the algorithm that you valued this information, and it helps us spread that message. Sharing is caring. And now, let's continue.
What to do in such a situation? Inform yourself and keep your financial education strong. We from the Compact Group offer our loyal subscribers a free educational portal with first-hand monetary, financial, and economic knowledge. Enter our invite-only Insider Club by clicking the link below. You will get access to first-class information far earlier than the rest. We have prepared a special deal for all our members, where you can access a giant pool of Robert Kiyosaki's financial wisdom for just $1. To find out more, simply click the link below and join our Insider Club, absolutely free. But there is more you can and should do. Build up several streams of income. More and more people realize that they have to take their future in their own hands, but they don't know how and where to start. We from Compact offer our Insider Club members unique opportunities. Strengthen your financial muscle and get the edge. Click the link below. Become part of our free Insider Club. No financial obligations. But there's one important thing you have to know. You have to become active. So do it now. Become active and see you on the other side.